Hi, thanks for joining me again. This is the US Futures weekly chart analysis for the week ending 8th of July 2022. The first chart we'll look at is the US dollar index as usual. Movements on this chart affect so many of the other markets, so it's important to understand what's happening on this chart. Now, you can clearly see that price accelerated higher this week. Pushed up and out above this breakout line. Some supply was previously drawn out at this level, but that was overcome this week and price accelerated higher on average volume. There's no volume anomaly. This was a clear and concise push out, and the higher prices in this market will put headwinds in front of many other markets, as you'll see in the future charts. The close was only slightly off its high, so not much supply was drawn out. I expect there'll be an early consolidation next week, and then if supply is low, price will continue higher. I expect it'll look something like this early in the week. And then if no supply is drawn out, then price will continue higher. The next chart is the E-mini S&P. This is the S&P 500 futures. Price traded as an inside bar this week, inside the range of the previous bar and inside the range of the previous two bars, really. So it was a consolidation bar. Volume was low, as you would expect it would be. When you're trading inside the range of a previous bar, I often say it's within the safety that's found inside the range of the previous bar. That's because price has already run through that level, and a lot of the supply that may have been there has been absorbed already. So it's a supply light area generally. Anyway, this market looks as though it would like to go higher. However, I'm expecting there to be increased supply drawn out of this congestion in here. And that's going to make it difficult for price to move higher and perhaps thwart a clear or clean move higher. And if the US dollar index continues high, that's just another headwind for this market. So while it looks like it would like to go higher, I think it's going to find the going difficult. So we'll just see what happens. I'm expecting an attempt to push higher, and that might be while the US dollar index tests for supply early next week, but it may end up failing in the end. So we'll just see. The US Treasury 10-year note futures often trade the inverse of the E-mini that we just looked at. Here is the top of the range. And you can see that price caught a bid 2 weeks ago and pushed up to that level. And it's attempted to move up to it this week again, but it's come back down. The headwinds created by the strength in the US dollar wouldn't have helped this market. Price has closed within the range of this up bar, so all's not lost, and volume was low, below average. So you may find price attempts to consolidate sideways here. It doesn't look particularly weak. It looks like there won't be enough strength to break through this highs of the trading range, especially if the US dollar continues higher. The strength in the US dollar is going to affect many markets in an ongoing fashion. Copper price futures. Copper price futures appear to have caught a bid this week. There's an attempt to support the market. You can see the close way off the low of the range. It's clear that price has broken down, and whether it can recover in the short term is probably unlikely. But the market has caught a bid this week, so there may be an attempt to consolidate sideways around this $3.50 level. So we'll see how that goes. It's just an attempt this week, but it's an attempt all the same. Gold price futures. Gold price futures have been extremely resilient for weeks when all the other markets were finding it difficult. Last week, price threatened to break down, and this week, with that really strong move on the US dollar, price actually cracked. Price has broken down, it's sliced through this first level below, and it's trying very hard to hold on to this level. If price continues lower, the next lower level is around the 1700, not far below. I expect price is going to attempt to hold on here, around the 1750. But now price has broken down. We'll just have to see how the market plays it. Volume was a little above average, so people did get out of this market this week on the strength of the US dollar. Silver price futures. Silver price futures had a much narrower spread than gold this week, and volume was low. This market didn't really want to go down, whereas gold had been holding on for all that time and eventually it cracked. This market had already broken down 2 weeks ago when gold was threatening to break down, so this week price has actually attempted to consolidate, although it has failed a little. It's not a particularly strong market at the moment. Price is attempting to consolidate, and it's done so this week with a narrower spread and lower volume, so selling pressure was reduced in this market. I expect price will attempt to continue sideways. It's slightly weaker overall than gold, so if the US dollar does continue higher, sideways to lower is the sentiment in this market I expect. Light crude price futures. Light crude had been trading in a bullish absorption pattern like this for quite some time. Broke out of that pattern a month back, attempted to hold on sideways, and the strength in the US dollar has also played its part in pushing this price much lower, albeit it recovered quite a bit of that lost ground by the week's end. When markets are affected badly by strength in the US dollar, if it happens slowly, the market's often able to absorb that weakness and hold on quite strongly overall. But when there's a sharp push higher like there was this week in the US dollar, associated markets are overwhelmed to some extent, and they find it really difficult to absorb that in the near term. It takes some time to achieve. Here's the lows of the range. Down here, you can see price was pushed lower when the US dollar pushed higher this week, and then over the remainder of the week, prices recovered some of the lost ground and closed well off its highs. This market will like to move up to this line again. It will depend partly on the strength of the US dollar, at least in the near term. There is good buying support in this market. As you can see, volume was above average, and that's probably showing that buyers came back in off the lows. So there is buying support, there is a positive sentiment in the market. It's really going to depend just how strong the US dollar index is in the near term as to whether price can push back up to this line. This seems to be the line in the sand at the moment, the 113, 114 level. So we'll see how that goes. There is strength in the market. It is finding it difficult to move higher while the US dollar index moves higher at the same time. Aussie dollar currency futures. The Aussie dollar currency futures have finally let go of the 70 cent level by the looks. There were a couple of deep penetrations, a failure to recover here, prices sliced back, and there is minor support around 68 cents, and it looks like the market will now try to hold on to 68 cents or thereabouts. It's only a minor level, so if there's ongoing pressure in the market, and I expect there may be over time, the 65 cent level is a little bit stronger than the 68 level, and that's probably where price is going to go. Bitcoin futures. Bitcoin futures have been having a bit of a tough time of it. You can see prices attempted to consolidate a couple of times. Here I thought was a good chance of consolidating at 30,000, but you can see price broke down a month back on a vast increase in volume. This is showing you that what was accumulated and consolidated here was most likely dumped in this really high volume that caused this down bar. And price is again attempting to consolidate here around the 20,000 level where the next support is. I've got next support only minor between 16,000 and 20,000. And price is sitting right on top of that level at the moment, right on top of the 20,000 level. Price moved higher this week, but volume wasn't particularly strong, so activity in the market wasn't particularly strong, and it hasn't been for the last 2 weeks. This is price just consolidating sideways. There's no real attempt to push higher. Prices floated higher this week, mostly on a lack of selling pressure rather than on strong buying pressure. You can see the below average volume shows that activity wasn't strong in the market. And the slightly increased spread this week shows that selling pressure was reduced. So that was some sort of positive for this market. I'm not expecting anything serious to happen. The lows of this bar will likely offer some resistance, some selling pressure at that level, and again around the 30,000 level. So between 25 and 30, I'm expecting increased resistance. Selling pressure will likely be drawn out between those levels. So just look for a consolidation sideways, and remember that there is minor support down to the 16,000 level. And just quickly going back to the US dollar index, this is where the action is. You can see price accelerated higher this week. The little close off the high suggests a little bit of supply has been drawn out. Look for a test for supply early next week, and if supply is found to be low, a continuing push higher to some degree. There's no real weakness in this market. Some supply was drawn out at 105. That's been absorbed. You can see when price pulled back, selling pressure was low, and since then price has pushed higher. I'm not expecting any serious weakness to emerge from here. If price pushed back below 105, you could get some sort of upthrusty bar, but that's not showing itself as being likely at this point in time. Okay, thanks for your time. Hopefully that was worthwhile. See ya.